I want to talk to you today about GasLab. It's a software tool that we supply to our customers. It's a download that communicates, allows them to configure and evaluate sensors very, very quickly. Principally, you plug it into the USB port and you connect it to a sensor and you're on the air. You can configure it from zirconia to measure oxygen, to electrochemical for all the exotics, NDIR for the CO2 and a number of other gases, moss oxides, all those kind of things you can talk to. And it's so quick. There is no tools involved and gyrations and logistics. You simply get to evaluate your sensor right then in there to make sure it's going to fit for the purpose. And I'm going to show you how quickly you can do that. Just taking one of these cables that's a bridge from USB through whatever topology you might be using, which could be UART, RS485, I2C, you name it. And in fact, we have some for the Bluetooth as well.
All right, so I've selected a sensor, and each one of the sensors has a number of configurations that it could go under, or has configuration parameters and so forth. And that's the nice thing about GasLab, that it handles those for you, so you can evaluate the best sensor for the application relatively quick. So here we go. I'm going to connect. This is going to go out and find this sensor. And so he comes out of the box and he's going to show you a whole bunch of stuff that he actually logs and so forth. So that we can see that this happens to be an oxygen sensor. It reports the temperature, relative humidity, pressure, and so forth. Because those extra sensors are on the board. And so if we were going in here and we wanted to see what each one of them does, you can see how they're communicating. So if I say read, you see the command that went down and what it responds. So I told it to read the oxygen. Now I told it to read the barometric pressure, and it reports what the barometric pressure is. All those pieces are handled for you. Then you have the configuration functions. And so that configuration screen will pop up here in a second after it goes out and interrogates the sensor. And we're going to pull this guy back into here where we can work with him. So the calibration concentration for this guy right here happens to be 20.9. That's already filled in. So if we had 20.9 gas flowing, we click this button, and all of a sudden your sensor is now calibrated to 20.9. You can also establish the 0, and some of them give you a choice. In this case, these kind of sensors, we only calibrate with nitrogen. You could use argon, you could use helium, you can do a lot of things like that. And it actually gives you a detail about this sensor. It is an MX200, which is a series. It's serial number 587. The software that is on this guy is 4 build 8, and the gas species happens to be oxygen. So there's a lot of other bits and pieces that are underlaying here, which involve gas concentration. These are all for logging functions. So if you were going to log local to the sensor, which is a function that some in this line already have, these would be enabled. They're grayed out because this particular sensor doesn't have logging on it. But in all of these guys, you can save the values, the configuration values that you have on the sensor out to a file. Okay, so the values are saved, and if you wanted to go in and reload them, you can do that, which would be you'd be writing the values to flash or retrieving it from flash. And that handles that piece. That stores out parameters that you might have modified, like calibration parameters and so forth. And this is giving you, saving out to a CSV file. And here's your flash configuration. So you can back up your flash configuration out to the file, and you get to pick the path and all that kind of thing. So as we come back, returning to the main screen, remember we have data logging. We have all of these settings for configuring it. For example, you can set all of these devices have RS-485 or this multi-drop like network configurations, and you have to assign an address to use those. And that's how you would go about calibrating. It's a big deal. It's taken care of transparently for you. And if you wanted to code these in to talk to the sensor directly, this is an excellent tool because you get to see what has to be done to conduct the process back and forth. So we close this guy out. And over here, let's go and do some data logging with it so you can see that functionality. I'm going to data log on a 10-second basis. I'm starting the data logging by default. This guy puts the assigns a file name of the day and date and so forth. I happen to have already done 3 logs today. That's why you've got day and date and in parens 3. This is the 3rd logging event for this particular sensor. Remember, we don't do it perfect the first time ourselves when we're making videos. All right, so now we're going in and we're starting a log. You see it's making its first measurements. I'm going to go back to the graphing display so you can see how that occurred. And in a few seconds, we're going to get another measurement. Here that is. And you can see that they're accumulating out here. We know that where the stuff is being stored. You'll note down here, only show the selected sensor. You can log several sensors at the same time in the GasLab software. So you would have assigned several, and this guy happens to be sensor 1. In setup, you can actually change this label. You can make it whatever you want to be. You could say the oxygen sensor next to the wall plug. All of that kind of thing. And when I spoke about addresses, this is the default address. It's a Modbus address. It is the let's say like an all call or anybody that's on the line address. If RS-485 were active, this would be a true. Okay. From there, let's stop our logging so you can see how that goes. All of this stuff gets updated so that you know what the other readings were, what the average value, min and max, that kind of thing. And we have to spool down through here. This is our guy. We click on it. We'll bring it up in an Excel spreadsheet so you can see what was going on as these things were logged out. So here, finally, we arrive and we're logging consecutively. This was me clicking the button at the very beginning of the video. You can see how I went click, 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 and this is where I actually started data logging. So I could restart the data logging and it would append that to a file, but the dates and times would be adjusted, which makes it kind of handy for if you're doing it to an SD card or something like that you're going to break it up using Excel later, or you're going to put it into a graph in Excel. So let's make Mr. Excel go away. We've got this. Remember, we have to go back to the live viewing mode, which is right here. And so we're back, and so if we're making a measurement again, it will just be added on. So the file that's behind this is still able to grab information. If we were to commence logging again, it would grab what was in the buffer. Okay, here's an old data log from, well, let's go September 30th. What was it? Okay. What were we logging? We were logging CO2 on that one, and that was what was going on. And so we click that guy off. this is the graph of whatever was going on. And the Screen Manager actually has some pretty cool stuff in it, so that you can zoom and you can print. You can copy the screen. You can print. You can save the image if you want as a JPEG. It allows you to do a page setup so that you can print the graph, which is kind of handy. And of course, you can do this set the scale to default, which stretches it out. And you can do the unzoom, which pushes it back in. So you see this is given to you as partial pressure. And if you want that converted, you can get it into percentage concentration. So if you're doing it medical, you really want to have partial pressure, which is always available. But the concentration that we display close to it, we give you the abilities for the annotation, so that some people want Fahrenheit, some people want centigrade. So that's handled here as well. That's GasLab. That's lots and lots of features of it. Each one of the sensors has all kinds of possibilities. You can pick it by product number. You can pick it by product line.